dialing it in. So I'm here to talk about immersive theater and dance over the past year. And I thought it would be helpful to start by trying to define immersive theater. It can be a lot of things. I think it often involves live performance. It is often site-specific or site-responsive, not taking place in traditional theater spaces. It's often interdisciplinary, which is why we talk about dance and theater, but it also includes lots of other art forms. And I think an important element of it is that it's interactive or participatory. Often audience members aren't seated for much, if all of the time. And what does it look like? It can look like Sleep No More in New York, large-scale immersive shows. It can look like big parties with live performers. It can look like murder mystery theater. It can look like late-night performances of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Here's how I personally like to define immersive theater. I think it really needs two key elements. One is that the audience is at the center of the story. The audience must have an active role and is not a passive voyeur. And I believe that the other piece of this is that the show can't happen without the audience. If you can run a show and do it without an audience, then I don't know if I would consider it immersive. The story part also implies that there's a narrative through line, which I think is important. Secondly, I would say that immersive doesn't have any edges to the experience. You can't see outside of the world or the story that you're in. This can be in public space where you give them a lens through which to view the world, or it can be in an intricately designed space. It also engages multiple senses. So that's how I like to think about immersive. For the purposes of tonight, and not to bog us down in the details or the definitions, I'm going to define immersive as if the creator calls it immersive, then we're going to say it's immersive. So we're being inclusive here, and we're going to just do a survey of all the cool stuff that's happening around town. So in the interest of time, I'm going to focus on 6 shows that I saw and I got to experience over the past year. It's been amazing to see how this art form and this community has grown. And in the past year, the quality of the work, the ambition, the insanity that people are doing, and the success that they've had artistically and in attracting audiences is really spectacular. So I reached out to the producers of the 6 shows. I asked them for a little bit of info that I'm going to share with you, just to do a lightning fast survey of what happened over the last year. And then I also asked them for what they learned, and I'm going to share some of our cumulative knowledge for you to join in on as well. So here we go. Last spring, summer was, I surveyed the landscape. Last summer was Rausch, which was the Catamounts and Control Group Productions, merging the Greek myth of Persephone with rock music, exploring everything from love lost to lost children to loss of self. Rausch offered an experience marrying the power of immersive artistry with the glory of the Colorado wilderness. They had 14 performances, 567 total attendees. Broken Bone Bathtub. Lonnie Hands-On brought this one-woman show to the Enchantment Society. It's about a woman who, after a serious bike accident, musters the courage to ask for help. She shares her story and engages the audience's own stories of vulnerability and connection as they help her take a bath. That had, I can't see very well, 18 performances, 363 total attendees. Tara Reinders created an amazing piece at Rose Medical Center called First Do No Harm. Tara's a dancer and immersive artist by day and a nurse by night, or vice versa. And this piece took place at the hospital and explored the issue of compassion fatigue and burnout from the nursing perspective. It was really, really amazing. I was lucky enough to be a part of Between Us here at Off Center. It was a trio of one-on-one experiences between one actor and 1 or 2 audience members. The deck of cards was a metaphysical card reading at the Tattered Cover. The blind date was a blind date with an actor at the MCA Denver. And the whiskey tasting introduced 2 audience members to 4 whiskeys and to each other. We had 587 performances and 754 audience members for that. Aggregate Immateriality this past spring, a Control Group Productions show. that took place in the basement of a former meatpacking facility in Globeville, combining interactive performance, environment design, and videography in a loosely narrative rumination on fear, death, and darkness. That was a totally spectacular venue and a really amazing production. And most recently, just closing, Nervamlet, which was a band of toughs, 90s grunge meets Hamlet, in a rock tale of icons and heart-shaped depression with a splash of conspiracy and murder. It happened around the Performing Arts Complex here and the Ellie Calkins Opera House, and a pretty large audience moved around from space to space following the show. They had 9 performances, 783 total attendees. So there's lots of people coming to these shows, which I think is really awesome. So I asked everyone, what did you learn from doing these shows? And I kind of combined the collective wisdom to share with you all into 5 takeaways. Number 1, there's a growing audience for this work in Denver. They want a cohesive narrative to follow. People are increasingly willing to explore immersive experiences outside of known venues and institutions. And Lonnie at Broken Bone learned that late night shows are very difficult to sell, which is also something we've learned at Off Center. Denver is not down for the late night. At least for theater. The second thing we learned is that audiences are looking for transformative experiences that take them beyond entertainment into something deeper and more personal. It's amazing what people will confess to a total stranger. We've seen that in multiple shows. First Do No Harm brought together theater and social activism, and they heard that the audience really appreciated and enjoyed being a part of something bigger. Another key finding, site-specific work is hard. It requires inventiveness, flexibility, and heroic effort. It can be incredibly rich and can offer production values far beyond the project's cash budget, but it's also extremely complicated with a lot more variables and challenges than standard public venues. You really have to think about how to enhance an environment rather than try to compete with it or make it into a traditional space. And it really helps to have generous and cooperative venue partners helping you pull it off. Scaling up is hard. This is something that we're finding locally, and that's a big conversation happening in the immersive space nationally. The key to what makes these special is that they're intimate and personal and hopefully affordable for people, and those things are in direct opposition with making money to pay for the thing. And so there's an inherent tension there in this work. And often bigger budgets are required, and it's hard to do this work on a shoestring. And finally, word of mouth is so crucial on this, and people are being really creative about generating word of mouth through the shows and building in ways that people want to share and can share their experiences about them. Now, to conclude, I want to just give another round of shout outs to projects that I couldn't go into more depth and people and organizations doing cool stuff. Alamo Drafthouse, the Artist Safety Alliance doing work on consent and safety, Arts in the Open, Audacious Theater, Pipe Dream Productions, local theater companies, site-specific discount Ghost Stories. Denver Film Festival has an immersive and VR component every year in November. Denver Immersive Opera. We did the immersive pop-up at the Denver Public Library in June. Itch.io is doing awesome stuff. Professor Felix is doing magic at the Stanley Hotel now. There's The Dinner Detective, and opening now-ish, any minute, is Zabidi, which is an immersive circus show that you should all check out. So that's what I wanted to share very briefly. It's so exciting to see the work that everyone's doing. I hope that we continue to support each other and the community, to push boundaries and take risks, and to build on our collective learning to keep making Denver awesome. Thank you all.